Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to unpack the really fascinating internal logic of two ancient texts. We're exploring a deeply universal human journey, what it actually takes to answer a higher calling. To do this, we'll be looking directly at passages from the book of Isaiah and the Gospel of Matthew to see exactly how they map out these profound messages.
It's a question that has literally echoed through history, right? How does a person actually find the courage to step up when they're called upon? Well, as we go through these texts today, I want you to look at them not just as abstract theology, but as a deeply relatable, very human narrative. It's a journey that goes from paralyzing self-doubt and imposter syndrome straight into this profound, unshakable courage.
Section 1. The Vision and the Call. The overwhelming awe of a divine encounter.
Okay, let's jump right in. We begin in the book of Isaiah, chapter 6, with what is honestly a truly cinematic opening. The text reads, "In the year King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord seated on a high and lofty throne, with the train of his garment filling the temple." Right out of the gate, the text plunges us into this grand, breathtaking scene. I mean, the scale here is massive. Just the hem, the train of the divine garment is literally enough to completely fill the massive space.
And talk about a sensory overload. We have seraphim stationed above, each with 6 wings. They're using 2 to veil their faces, 2 to veil their feet, and 2 to hover aloft. And they're calling out to one another, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. All the earth is filled with his glory." The text tells us the sound of this cry is so intense that the very frames of the doors are shaking, and the whole house just fills with smoke. It's this incredibly dramatic illustration of an overwhelming, terrifying, and awe-inspiring divine presence. Section 2. Overcoming our deepest doubts. Confronting feelings of inadequacy.
Now, what's really fascinating here is how entirely natural the human reaction is to all that majesty. Faced with this terrifying perfection, Isaiah doesn't suddenly feel brave. He feels utterly unequipped. He cries out, "Woe is me, I am doomed, for I am a man of unclean lips, living among a people of unclean lips. Yet my eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts." Think about how relatable that is for a second. It is basically the ultimate ancient expression of imposter syndrome. He's feeling completely unworthy and inadequate when faced with this enormous responsibility.
But this profound encounter doesn't just happen all at once. It actually unfolds in 4 very distinct steps. First, you have the overwhelming vision. Second, that confession of unworthiness we just talked about. Third is purification. The text describes a seraph flying over to Isaiah holding a burning ember taken with tongs right from the altar. The seraph touches Isaiah's mouth with it and declares, "Your wickedness is removed, your sin purged." It's this physical, visceral act of burning away the inadequacy, which perfectly prepares him for the 4th step, the commissioning.
So, the absolutely crucial point happens right here. Only after he's properly prepared and his doubts are quite literally purged away does the voice of the Lord finally speak. The ultimate invitation is presented. "Whom shall I send? Who will go for us?" And just look at the complete 180 in his response. Gone is the guy crying, "Woe is me." Instead, we see this immediate, intrinsic courage. Isaiah enthusiastically replies, "Here I am, send me." It shows us that once the self-doubt was removed, his willingness to step up and into the calling was absolute.
Section 3. The Cost of Discipleship. The Harsh Reality of the Task.
Now, stepping into a calling sounds glorious, right? But we're going to shift our focus over to the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 10, which hits us with a much more grounded, urgent reality. Jesus lays out these maxims: no disciple is above his teacher, and no slave is above his master. The foundational rule being laid out is simple but incredibly heavy. It's enough that the follower becomes like the leader. And what that means is they're inevitably going to share the same struggles and the exact same fate.
And that fate involves some pretty severe societal resistance. The text states, "If they have called the master of the house Beelzebul, how much more those of his household?" Now, to be equated with Beelzebul is a really harsh historical reference. It essentially meant being aligned with demonic forces. So the text is warning its readers that answering a calling isn't just about some private, personal purification. It means you're going to face intense misunderstanding and hostility from the world around you.
Section 4. Worth more than sparrows. Finding assurance against fear.
So, how exactly do you handle that terrifying reality? Well, the text provides a direct antidote through a very specific set of instructions. Jesus repeatedly mandates bold action. Do not be afraid of them. He commands his followers to speak in the light what is heard in darkness, and to proclaim on the housetops what is whispered, basically assuring them that absolutely nothing concealed will fail to be revealed.
And this sets up a brilliant philosophical distinction that the text uses to cure fear. On one side, you have those who can only kill the body, which is framed as a temporary physical threat. But then the text tells us to instead fear the one who can destroy both soul and body in Gehenna. It completely reframes the believer's perspective by placing those temporary, earthly fears right up against the ultimate, eternal spiritual stakes.
But it doesn't just use the fear of eternal destruction to motivate people. It pivots to a beautifully simple image. Just two. The text asks this really surprising question. Are not 2 sparrows sold for a small coin?
You say sparrows were incredibly cheap back then. They were almost entirely insignificant in the marketplace. Yet the text points out that not a single one of these practically worthless birds falls to the ground without your Father's knowledge. This one specific detail so beautifully illustrates the whole concept of ultimate divine providence. It's this warm, deeply reassuring promise that divine attention is always present.
And then, that divine attention builds to an even more intimate level. Even all the hairs of your head are counted. So do not be afraid. You are worth more than many sparrows. It's amazing. This comforting imagery functions as the ultimate reassurance. If the Creator is tracking the sparrows and literally counting the hairs on your head, your value is immense. And that right there is the truth required to conquer those terrifying societal fears we talked about earlier.
Section 5. Stepping forward with courage. The ultimate choice of faith.
So, synthesizing the jaw-dropping awe of Isaiah and the grounded realism of Matthew, we've finally reached the unified message about the courage of faith. The gospel text presents this stark, binary ultimatum. Everyone who acknowledges him before others will be acknowledged before the Heavenly Father, but whoever denies him before others will be denied before the Heavenly Father. It's an unyielding conclusion about the eternal consequences of public courage versus public denial.
Which brings us to our final thought for today. We've seen the overwhelming awe of the divine, the fiery purging of human inadequacy, the harsh reality of societal pushback, and the ultimate, intimate comfort of divine providence. Together, these ancient texts map out the entire architecture of answering a higher call. So I want to leave you with this reflection. When the distractions of life fade away and the voice asks, "Whom shall I send?" how will you answer? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep seeking to understand the profound texts that shape our world.